You are tethering me to a street lamp? I'm securing the scene. Stay put. You try to stand up, I add resisting to the trespass charge. This is unconscionable. I am a homeowner.
Marcus Thorne, age 58, is not a burglar. He is a seated justice on the state Supreme Court, a jurist with 30 years of unblemished service and a reputation for conservative, pro-law enforcement rulings. His annual salary exceeds $220,000, and the property he stands accused of trespassing upon is a historic estate he purchased 72 hours prior for $1.2 million. He is currently on a sabbatical, overseeing the initial renovations of his new home. He has no criminal record, not even a speeding ticket in the last decade. Sergeant Vance, the officer behind the camera, is a 15-year veteran of the force with a base salary of $85,000. His personnel file, later subpoenaed during discovery, reveals a pattern of aggressive stops in low-income areas, though this is his first month patrolling the affluent Oak Haven district. There are 4 prior civilian complaints regarding discourtesy and bias-based profiling in his file, all of which were marked as unfounded by internal affairs. Before we examine the psychological and systemic failures that led to this moment, I want to pose a question to the audience regarding the initial contact. In many jurisdictions, officers are granted wide latitude to detain individuals for investigation if they have reasonable suspicion. Based on the limited dialogue you just heard, do you believe Sergeant Vance had enough legal ground to demand identification, or was this interaction flawed from the first second? Pause the video, go to the comments section, and write "justified" or "overreach," followed by your reasoning. This distinction will become the crux of the legal battle that follows. The Oak Haven Historic District operates as a distinct socio-economic ecosystem. Established in the late 1920s, the neighborhood is characterized by sprawling lawns, colonial revival architecture, and a demographic that has remained 95% white for the last half-century. The sensory environment is one of aggressive tranquility. The audio on the Bodycam captures the low hum of expensive landscaping equipment and the chirping of cicadas, but very little human noise. It is a place where visibility is currency. Residents pay a premium for privacy, yet the neighborhood watch culture is hyper-vigilant. This tension between privacy and surveillance creates a specific psychological trigger for law enforcement. When officers like Sergeant Vance are assigned to these zones, their mandate is often implicitly understood as protection of the status quo, rather than simple crime prevention. The arrival of new money, particularly from minority homeowners, often disrupts the established visual baseline of the community. For a resident like Justice Thorne, the purchase of the property is the culmination of a lifelong career and the American dream. For an officer operating on bias confirmation loops, Thorne's presence does not register as ownership. It registers as an anomaly. To understand why Thorne felt safe enough to argue and why Vance felt empowered to escalate, we must look at the concept of territoriality. Justice Thorne, accustomed to being the ultimate authority in a courtroom, operates under the assumption that the law is a shield that protects him regardless of his location. He believes his attire, a tailored suit, and his demeanor should signal his status. Conversely, Sergeant Vance views the district as his operational territory. In his psychological framework, anyone who does not immediately submit to his authority is a threat to his control of that territory. This clash is not just about race, it is about 2 competing hierarchies of power colliding in real time. The encounter begins at 2 p.m. The Bodycam footage shows Vance's cruiser rolling slowly past the property at 122 Elm Street. Thorne is visible standing near the front porch, examining a contractor's clipboard. Vance stops the car, not because he observes a crime, but because Thorne looks up at the cruiser. "Hey there, you live here?" Vance calls out through the open passenger window, his tone casual, but his volume projected to dominate the space. Thorne lowers the clipboard, removing his reading glasses with a deliberate, slow movement that typically commands respect in a legal setting, but here serves to irritate the officer. "Good afternoon, officer. I am the owner, yes. Can I help you with something?" Thorne replies, his voice projected from the diaphragm, calm and authoritative. "We've had some reports of construction theft in the area. Just checking to make sure you're supposed to be here. You got ID on you?" "I am on my own property, officer. Unless you are accusing me of a crime, I am not obligated to provide identification. I am happy to answer questions, but I will not be interrogated in my own driveway." Vance opens the car door and steps out. The audio captures the heavy thud of his boots on the pavement, a sound that signals a shift from a consensual encounter to an investigatory detention. "I didn't ask you for a law lecture. I asked for ID. Now you can either show me some proof that you belong at this address, or we can do this the hard way." The hard way implies you intend to violate my Fourth Amendment rights because you cannot conceive that a black man owns this house. Is that the route you want to take, Sergeant? Vance closes the distance rapidly, invading Thorne's personal space, a tactic known as proxemic pressure, designed to provoke a fight-or-flight response. "You need to watch your tone. I have a job to do. You're standing at a vacant property with no vehicle in the driveway, holding a clipboard. That looks like casing to me. ID, last warning. My vehicle is in the garage. My deed is in my pocket. My identification is in my wallet. You will see none of it until you articulate a reasonable suspicion that I have committed a crime." At 14:04 p.m., Vance reaches for his radio. He does not call for backup. He keys the mic to check availability, a subtle psychological tell that he is preparing to act alone. "Okay, have it your way. Turn around." "I am not turning around. I am asking you to leave my property." Vance grabs Thorne's left wrist. The camera shakes violently as the physical altercation begins. Thorne does not strike back. He stiffens, a passive resistance technique, planting his feet. "Do not touch me. You are making a grave error." "Stop resisting. Turn around," Vance shouts, his voice cracking slightly, indicating a spike in cortisol. The struggle is brief. Vance uses a leverage takedown, spinning Thorne against the hood of the patrol car. The sound of Thorne's expensive suit scraping against the dusty metal is clearly audible. "You are under arrest for obstruction and disorderly conduct," Vance pants, struggling to pull Thorne's wrists together because of the justice's broad shoulders. "I am not resisting," Thorne says, his face pressed against the hot metal of the cruiser, his voice muffled but terrifyingly calm. "I am complying with a physical assault. Note the time." "Shut up! You want to play lawyer? You can do it in the holding cell." Vance secures the handcuffs. At this point, standard procedure would be to place the suspect in the rear of the vehicle. However, the rear seat of Vance's cruiser is filled with tactical gear bags, a violation of department policy that renders the cage unusable. "Walk, over there," Vance commands, shoving Thorne toward the sidewalk. "Where are you taking me? The car is right here." "Backseat's full. You're going to sit on the curb while I search you." "I do not consent to a search, and I have a bad knee. I cannot sit on the curb." "Then you can stand, or you can sit. I don't care. Move." They reach the decorative iron street lamp at the edge of the lawn. Vance produces a second pair of handcuffs. This is the moment of critical deviation. Instead of clearing his back seat or calling for a transport van, Vance makes a punitive decision. "Since you like to run your mouth and act like you own the place, we're going to make sure you stay put. I'm going to take these off, but you have to listen to me. You were resisting. You wouldn't show ID. I followed protocol." "You are shaking, Sergeant. It is difficult to unlock cuffs when your hands are shaking." "I'm not shaking. Just hold still." Vance finally manages to unlock the cuffs attached to the pole. He then works on the cuffs on Thorne's wrists. As the steel ratchets open, Thorne stands up slowly. He brushes the dirt from his suit pants. He checks his wrists, which are red and indented. "Am I free to go, Sergeant? Or are you still conducting your investigation?" If you're the homeowner, you're free to go. But I'm writing you up for the obstruction. You can't just refuse a lawful order." "It wasn't a lawful order, and you aren't writing anything. You are going to wait right here. I am calling Chief Miller. Do you know the chief? We play golf on Tuesdays." "You don't have to do that. We can work this out." "There is nothing to work out. You chained a Supreme Court justice to a lamppost because you didn't like his tone. The time for working it out was 10 minutes ago." Thorne reaches into his pocket, retrieves his cell phone, and dials. Vance stands awkwardly by the cruiser, unsure whether to leave or stay. He places his hands on his belt, then crosses them, then drops them to his sides. A cascade of displacement activities signaling a total loss of control. "Yes, Chief, it's Marcus. I'm at my new property on Elm. I need you to send a shift supervisor and a crime scene unit." "No, I'm physically all right, but I've been assaulted." "By one of yours? Sergeant Vance?" "Yes, I'll hold." Vance turns away from the camera, looking toward the horizon. The realization of his financial and professional ruin is setting in. He mutes his body microphone at 14:15 p.m., a violation of policy that will later be used as evidence of consciousness of guilt. However, the dashcam audio from his cruiser is still active, and it catches him muttering a single sentence to himself. "I'm done. I'm so done." The legal fallout was not immediate, but it was absolute. Justice Thorne filed a formal complaint the following morning, followed by a federal civil rights lawsuit 3 weeks later. The lawsuit alleged false imprisonment, excessive force, assault, and violations of the 4th and 14th Amendments. The internal affairs investigation was blistering. It revealed that Vance's rear seat was indeed full of unauthorized equipment, which was the primary reason he utilized the chaining technique. The department's use of force policy strictly prohibits tethering suspects to fixed objects unless there is an immediate, overwhelmed threat to life, which clearly did not apply to a compliant 58-year-old man. During the deposition, Thorne's legal team dismantled Vance's defense of qualified immunity. They argued that no reasonable officer would believe it was constitutional to chain a homeowner to a pole for refusing to show ID without a specific crime being articulated. The city's attorneys saw the footage, specifically the image of the black justice sitting in the dirt while the white officer stood over him, and knew the case would never survive a jury trial. The optics were catastrophic. The settlement was finalized 14 months later. The city agreed to pay Justice Thorne $6 million. This figure was calculated based on punitive damages and the extreme reputational harm caused to a high-ranking public official. But here is where the controversy lies. The $6 million did not come from Sergeant Vance's bank account. It came from the city's general liability fund, taxpayer money. Vance was fired and decertified, meaning he can never work as a police officer in the state again, but he faced no criminal charges. "What are you doing?" "Officer, this is excessive. I am handcuffed." "And you're a big guy. I'm not taking chances with you running into the house and barricading yourself. Turn. Now." Vance loops the second set of cuffs through the first and around the pole. He forces Thorne into a seated position in the dirt at the base of the lamp. "This is unconscionable. You are chaining me like an animal." "I'm detaining a suspect. If you're the homeowner, this will all get sorted out. But right now, you're a suspect who refused to identify. Sit tight." Vance walks back to the cruiser, leaving Thorne tethered to the pole. The visual is striking. A distinguished man in a ruined suit, shackled to public infrastructure, on display for the neighbors who are now beginning to emerge from their homes. At 14:08 p.m., Vance begins to rummage through Thorne's pockets, which he has emptied onto the hood of the car. He finds a leather wallet. He opens it. Let's see. Marcus Thorne. Okay, Marcus, let's see if you have any warrants. He does not yet look at the badge or the judicial identification card tucked in the second flap. He is focused on the driver's license. Dispatch, runner 2729 on a Thorne, Marcus. DOB 08/12/1965. While he waits for the return, Vance walks back toward the pole, holding the wallet. Thorne looks up, sweat beading on his forehead. Did you look at the second card, Sergeant? Or did you stop at the license? I'm running your name. If you're clean, maybe I unhook you. But you're going to jail for obstruction regardless. I am a justice on the state Supreme Court. The card you are holding identifies me as a member of the judiciary. You have currently falsely imprisoned a high-ranking government official. Vance stops walking. The camera captures his hand freezing in mid-air. He looks down at the wallet. He flips the flap. The gold seal of the state Supreme Court glimmers in the sunlight. You can buy a badge online. Doesn't mean anything. Check the ID number. Call your watch commander. Tell him you have Justice Thorne chained to a pole at 122 Elm. You're lying. Judges don't dress like. They don't hang out at construction sites. I am renovating my home, the home you are currently trespassing on. Make the call, Sergeant. This moment presents a profound ethical and legal dilemma. We see an officer who is committed to a course of action based on bias, now faced with evidence that contradicts his reality. He has two choices: immediately de-escalate and apologize, or double down and try to justify the arrest to protect himself. I want you to pause and consider the visual evidence. We see a man who poses no physical threat, restrained in a manner typically reserved for violent psychosis or high-flight risks, simply because the officer's vehicle was against regulation. Is the act of chaining a suspect to a fixed object ever justifiable in a traffic or property stop? Or is this a specific tactic of humiliation? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Safety protocol or torture tactic, and tell me why. The radio crackles at 14:11 p.m. Dispatch to 4 Zebra 20. Subject Thorne returns valid. No wants, no warrants. Note on file. Subject is listed as VIP personnel, Judiciary Level 1. Vance stares at the radio microphone. His breathing, audible on the recording, shifts from the rapid panting of exertion to a shallow, rhythmic pattern associated with panic. Copy, dispatch, Vance whispers, his voice losing all its earlier projection. He looks back at the pole. Thorne has not moved. He is staring directly at the camera lens. You heard that, didn't you, Sergeant? Judiciary Level 1. Look, I didn't know. You didn't tell me. I told you I was the owner. I told you I had the deed. You chose not to listen. Now unchain me. Vance fumbles with his keys. The dexterity he showed earlier is gone. He drops the keys in the dirt. He has to kneel to pick them up, placing him physically lower than the man he is detaining. This leads to my final question for you. When a settlement this large is paid out, due to the specific, ego-driven actions of one officer, who should foot the bill? Should police unions carry liability insurance for their members, or is it the burden of the tax-paying community to absorb the cost of bad policing? Tell me in the comments, union liability or taxpayer burden, and explain your solution. Today, Marcus Thorne has retired from the bench. He donated a significant portion of the settlement to a legal defense fund for wrongful arrest victims. He finished the renovations on the house at 122 Elm Street, but he never moved in. He sold it 6 months later, stating that the memory of the incident had poisoned the soil. Derek Vance is currently unemployed. His attempts to sue the department for wrongful termination were dismissed with prejudice. He has been named in 2 other lawsuits that were reopened following the publicity of the Thorne incident, cases that were previously dismissed but are now being re-examined under the light of his demonstrated bias. The camera is a neutral observer. It does not judge intent, it only records action. In the case of Sergeant Vance, the camera captured the exact moment when authority curdled into tyranny. It showed us that for some, a badge is a license to impose a hierarchy based on optics rather than law. But it also showed us that when the truth is recorded, even the most entrenched systems of power can be forced to blink. Justice Thorne was chained to a pole to be made small, to be reminded of a place the officer believed he occupied. Instead, the footage turned that pole into a monument to the officer's ignorance, and the justice walked away with the power to force the entire department to its knees. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be down there reading them.